Hi, welcome to 10 Minute Violin. We're so glad to have you join us here today. I'm Miguel Ramirez, and this is the live stream training session for the 10-minute practice video titled Violin Bow Hold Part 2. I want to make sure everyone has a good understanding of our format here at 10 Minute Violin. First of all, I want to clarify that this session here is not the 10-minute practice video itself. This is the training session where we'll explain in detail how to best approach the material presented in our Violin Bow Hold Part 2 10-minute practice video. It's important to watch this training session at least once before following along with the 10-minute practice video so you can optimize your time spent with it. There will also be a question and answer time at the end of this training session for those of you who are tuning in live, and the separate 10-minute practice video will be available on our YouTube channel directly following this session. An easy way to think about it is if you view this live stream training session as your lecture or your class, and the separate 10-minute practice video as your lab or your homework. At this time, I'd like to introduce my brother and co-host of 10-Minute Violin, John Ramirez.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to see everybody. I just want to just tell you that I'm going to be basically manning the cameras and doing the graphics and the sound. But later on, I hope to be more involved in the front end of the camera. But I also want to remind everybody to say hello in our chat. And then also, again, to remind you that if you have any questions during the stream, that you can actually put that at any time. All right, so I'm going to send you back to Miguel.
All right, so today's training session will be taking a lot of what we had covered last week to the next level. So since this training session should be a bit shorter, I'd like to take a moment to look at the end goal of our series on bowing fundamentals and offer a word of encouragement as you're going through these exercises. So really the end goal is for you to accomplish a higher level of control and agility in your bowing, which will allow you to play with a higher degree of artistry as you apply that to your pieces and etudes. To help you get there, we've carefully broken down all of this into simple and manageable steps that build and progress until you reach that goal. So your job is just to take each step seriously and carefully, no matter how simple the exercise may seem. Always double and triple check that you're doing things exactly as we present them during the training sessions. And finally, I'd like to encourage you to stick with it. Our motto here at 10 Minute Violin is press play every day. And that's because understanding the concepts alone won't really get you anywhere unless you actually follow it up with the practice. So if I think of it in terms of physical exercise, I could understand in my mind, how to properly do a push-up or a sit-up, or even be able to do one successfully. But unless I actually do those things regularly each day, I can't really expect to see any physical results. So please know that each day and every step along the way is an investment in your playing. And each time you carefully go through a practice video is like a little deposit in your violin bank account. So finally, we hope this information will be valuable for you no matter what level you're on at the violin, and also be helpful for you who are viola students. Now I'd like to take a moment to say hi to those in the chat room. Let's check in with John again to see who's joining us today.
We have people checking in, but we haven't seen anybody say hello yet. So what we can do is we'll just say hello to them at the end of the at the end of our stream. So sending it back to Miguel.
All right. So just to remind you, as John said, you can submit your questions in the chat anytime during the training session, and we'll get to as many as we can after we finish covering all the material. Since there's about a 15-second delay between broadcasting live in our studio and when you receive it at home, try to submit your questions before the end of the index and ring finger seesaw using bow section of the training to make sure that we see them. But again, you can submit them anytime. Last few things before we dive into the material. Follow the links below if you'd like to book a private lesson with me or John. And if you find our content helpful, I'd like to remind you to subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified every time we release a new video. Like and share it with your friends. So the first exercise that you'll see in the 10-minute practice video for this week is the bow slides on 4 fingers. So this exercise is pretty much like the pencil slides on 4 fingers. The difference now is that we'll use the bow, and we'll slide the bow on the fingers for the full length of the bow from the tip, from the frog to the tip and then back. So this is the bow slides on 4 fingers. And so you're going to want to make sure that the bow, double check the bow is sliding across the fingers at the same angle all the way through each slide. So again, we have, let's see here. Okay, there we go. So we have the marks on my fingers there, and I'm going to line those up with the bow here. So just like we did with the pencil, on 4 fingers without the thumb, and we're going to simply slide. Try to keep those all the way to the tip in the same places, and then back again, all the way back to the frog. And we're simply going to repeat that over and over again in the practice video. All right, and then the next exercise is the thumb placement with a still bow. And so this one's like the thumb placement with a still pencil. The difference here being that you want the fingers to be in their proper places on the bow itself. So to review, the middle finger should be in line with the end of the frog across from where the thumb goes. And so you can see that here with this marking here across where the thumb goes over here, and then it continues down over the frog. And then the index finger is wrapped around the stick approximately at the middle of the silver winding. Again, where that marking is there, painted on the bow. The ring finger covers the eye of the frog here. Ring finger covering the eye of the frog there. And then the pinky is placed on the bow stick somewhere on the opposite end of the frog from where the thumb is placed. So it's about here. The thumb is over here on this side of the frog, and then the pinky is over on this side here, on the stick, of course, on the top of the stick. Okay, and then the thumb will be, and we can maybe get this from the top here, the thumb will be partly placed on the corner of the frog where that paint is there, and then partly on the stick. You can see that there's a little bit of stick in between there that the paint's on, and then the paint is on this part of the winding, the leather wrapping there. So again, partly on the edge of the frog, partly on the stick, and partly on the winding, just as shown there with the markings. Did we get all that okay? Okay. So we got the fingers in those places, so this is all pretty good. If you notice there, you don't really see any of the markings on my fingers because they're covered up properly with the bow. And then we begin the exercise, and this is just like before, and we make sure that every time we put the thumb, we place it exactly in that place that I described. And then also let's remember that it should be on the inside corner of the tip of the thumb where that marking on my finger is. So again, just like the pencil exercise. And then keep checking always that everything's in the correct place. All right, so moving on, the next exercise we'll cover is going to be the bow slides with the 4 fingers and the thumb. Again, this exercise is like the pencil slides with 4 fingers and the thumb, but now we're using the bow, and again sliding it all the way from the frog to tip and back again. So we'll start with our good bow hold at the frog. Double check everything that we just did, and then go ahead and make sure that the fingers stay in good relation to each other all the way through each slide. So we can even double check there at the tip. Yeah, it looks like my index finger is still wrapping around the stick. Of course, you do see those markings on my middle and ring fingers, because they're not being covered by the frog, and that's okay, of course. And the pinky is still on the tip. The thumb is still across from the middle finger and in its place. And then we go back all the way to the frog like that. And we simply go back and forth, through the bow with 4 fingers and the thumb. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So we're going to go on to the next exercise. The ones that you have done last week with the pencil, we're going to start doing them with the bow. If you've noticed, there's going to be a few more of those. And so there shouldn't be too much that it feels different. They should all feel pretty similar. And so hopefully we can kind of get through them quicker. And this practice video, there's not like a whole lot of new stuff that you have to really learn. So with that said, the next exercise is something that is going to be new for today, and that's the bow release slide. So I recommend doing this exercise holding the bow over a bed or a couch or some other soft surface, just in case the bow drops out of your hand. You don't have to worry about damaging the bow. So this exercise starts with the vertical bow, and again, double checking that you still have that good bow hold. And then we're going to simply release any pressure that we're using to hold the bow so it slips through the fingers a few inches. And then we'll add that pressure back again to stop it like this. Just like that. And then we'll repeat that process over and over again until we get to the tip of the bow. And then we'll start over again from the frog. Double checking to make sure that my thumb and my middle finger are still across from each other. And we get all the way to the tip. This one is not like crab crawl. You don't have to get your way back to the frog. You could just simply put it back to the frog. The big takeaway from this exercise is that you use as little pressure as possible to hold the bow vertically. Like this, as little pressure as possible, and then release as little pressure as possible to allow the bow to slide. So the ideal amount of pressure in your hand is always as little as needed. And through this exercise, you'll notice you don't need that much to hold on to the bow. Okay, so moving on to the next exercise. This one is called index finger and pinky seesaw. So this is another good exercise for calibrating pressure in your right hand. And this exercise will use what's called the balance point of the bow. To find the balance point, place the bow on your left index finger close to the middle of the bow on the lower side or the frog side of the bow. I have my balance point marked here actually with yellow tape. That's how I'm able to find it so easily. And maybe you could see that with the top camera. So there's the balance point, and it's marked there with yellow tape. But try to find someplace, here it's like about maybe 5 or 6 inches away from the middle of the bow. Every bow is going to be different, so you're going to have to, test this out on your own bow. But if you notice, if it's too far there, it's going to tip over on one side and the other. So right there is the balance point. Notice that the bow is heavier at the frog and lighter at the tip. That's shown by the bow being shorter on the frog side of the balance point and longer on the tip side. So we'll start here with our good bow hold. The thumb and the middle fingers contacting the stick exactly at the balance point. Then lift all the fingers except for the middle finger and the thumb. which again should both contact the stick directly across from each other. So they're both at the balance point and they're both directly across from each other. Place the bow at about a 45-degree angle or so with the tip of the bow over your left shoulder. Take your left hand and tap the upper side of the bow, and then counteract that by tapping the pinky, and then repeat. So I'm tapping this side, and then I'm counteracting that by tapping the pinky. You'll want the middle finger and the thumb to remain contacting the stick at the right places on the markings of the fingers. If they slip from those places, take a moment to reposition. And maybe I could show you here again from the top camera that those places are the stick contacts the middle finger right there, and then also at the thumb on the inside corner. And so again, I'm placing the bow there on those places. If you like are maybe a little bit too loose, that bow might want to slip out of those places and it might go towards the tip of the middle finger. And so we want to have enough pressure to keep the bow at these contact points, but the very least amount of pressure needed to allow the bow to easily do the seesaw motion. So it needs to do both of those things. Keep in the right contact points, but also be able to do the seesaw motion. All right, so now the next part of this exercise is to do the same thing at the opposite end of the bow. Now we'll use the left hand to tap the bow at the frog side and the middle finger to tap the bow in response, and repeat. So I'm just tapping with the index finger. Okay. Finally, we'll use the index finger and pinky to take turns tapping back and forth on each side of the seesaw with the fingers in as much the proper places as possible. So I want to tap that pinky as much on the dot and the index finger as much as I can on the marking on my index finger. Start slowly at first, then speed up the exercise as much as you are able while keeping good form and control. All right, next exercise is the pinky push-ups starting at the balance point. This is the same motion as the pinky push-ups on the pencil exercise, but again, the difference here is using the bow now. We'll start at the balance point where the bow will feel light like the pencil. And we're going to do the same exercise as before, remembering simply to bend and extend the pinky and keep the forearm still. So remember again that this is not a supination, but this is just a pinky push-up. So here's where we'll start creating some resistance for the pinky so it can get stronger. Move the hand an inch or so closer to the frog and do that exercise again. Do you feel that your pinky has to work a little harder? Move again a little closer to the frog, and you'll feel that the bow gets heavier and the pinky has to do a little more work. We're going to continue this process as far as you can to keep good form with the pinky. Okay? So I'm going to go a little further towards the frog here and do the same exercise. It's heavier there. And as I go, as I change placements with my hand, I'm always making sure that the thumb is in good position across from the middle finger, and that also that the fingers are contacting the bow in the right places. If the pinky starts losing good form, if you're getting close to the frog and it's kind of like doing, like this kind of thing where it's locking, or, I'll try to, starting to do like that. you want to stop there. Okay, go back towards the balance point to a place where you can keep, again, good form with the pinky, where it doesn't lock up or anything like that. And that you're not like overworking it. If you can barely do the exercise, go to a place where it gives you some resistance. So you're still working and developing the muscles, but not so much to where like you don't need to pick up like a 200-pound weight. All right, like the first day at the gym. Work up to it. So don't worry if you can't get there right away. It may take multiple weeks of using this practice video from this week to get to that point, and that's totally fine. But for now, I'm just going to show you how it looks to get all the way to the frog. Here I'm back at the frog. Everything's in its right place. And I'm going to continue that pinky push-up exercise here. If you get to this point, you know that that pinky has definitely developed some strength. Okay, so now the next one is going to be bow lift offs using pinky push-up and crab crawl. So the title here may sound pretty complicated, but this exercise is simply combining a couple exercises you are already familiar with together. So again, we're going to start with a good bow hold at the balance point. And you might want to take just a side note, when you find your balance point, you might want to take a little tape there, masking tape or whatever you have, just to mark that balance point, because we're gonna go to it pretty often here. So with the left arm now that we got the good bow hold here, the left arm, we're gonna stretch it out at approximately 135-degree angle, if we're looking at it like this here. And the tip side of the bow will rest on my arm around the area of my elbow, and I'll do a pinky push-up. If you're doing this correctly, the bow should lift off the arm as you do the pinky push-up. On a side note, do this exercise and the ones that follow with the long sleeve shirt so the bow hair doesn't absorb the natural oils from your skin. That will damage the bow hair. Alternatively, you could place your dowel over your left shoulder at the same angle and have the bow hair contact the dowel instead. All right. To make this exercise more challenging for the pinky, we're going to use the crab crawl to move the hand a little bit closer to the frog and continue the bow lift-offs using the pinky push-up. Keep continuing this until you get to the frog, or again as far as you can, while keeping good form. Crab crawl, a little closer to the frog. Keeping good form with the pinky. Bow lift-offs with the pinky push-ups. Crab crawl again. I'm going to go all the way to the frog. You can take as many increments, little increments as you need. But for time's sake, I'm going all the way to the frog here. And that's your ultimate goal. So the pinky lifts the bow off the string, and it also controls the little lifts that keep the pressure from, nice light bow as well. But we're doing the big, the macro right now. All right. So next is going to be pronation and supination with the bow. Now this one is further developing our previous pronation and supination with pencil. And so again, we'll start at the balance point with a good bow hold and do the exercise we introduced last week. So pronation, supination, pronation, supination. As far as like how easy this is. It should feel pretty easy like the pencil. But if you can guess, if you notice a trend, you can guess what we're going to do next. We're going to move the hand a little closer to the frog and again repeat the exercise. Pronation, supination, pronation, supination. And again, continue this all the way to the frog, little by little, or again as far as you're able to while maintaining good form until you get all the way to the frog. Supination, pronation, supination. Okay, so next is going to be pronation with leverage using the bow. This is also a variation of an exercise from last week, now using the bow instead of the pencil. You'll want to make sure that the bow is tightened for this exercise. First, get your good bow hold set at the frog. Then stretch out your left arm or dowel as before at approximately 135-degree angle and place the bow on the arm at the middle of the bow. We'll lift the ring finger and pinky off the bow as we did with the pencil, leaving only the index finger, middle finger, and thumb. Just like before, we'll do our pronation, this time making sure the bow stick is pushed down all the way to the hair each time you pronate. And maybe just to show you a little bit more clearly with the dowel. There I am with my 3 fingers again. And with the dowel you can see how the stick is going. There's a gap there, and then as I pronate, the stick is going all the way down to the hair. So if you're doing this with your arm, that's totally fine, but just make sure that the stick is going all the way down to the hair. The other thing is to make sure that you're not squeezing your thumb, that you're just keeping its form and doing a pronation with the forearm. So we shouldn't have to do a pronation with the forearm and try to squeeze the thumb. You don't need to do that. Okay, now keeping the feeling of the 3 fingers, we're going to replace both the ring finger and pinky and continue that exercise. And just like before, you can lift them up again if you've lost the feeling of the 3 fingers, and then replace them again to keep that feeling of the pronation there. Okay. All right, good. So now the last exercise you'll do in this week's practice video is the index and ring finger seesaw using bow. So this is another variation on a pencil exercise from last week. So again, it should feel very similar to that one. We'll start with a good bow hold at the frog and our left arm outstretched, again with or without the dowel, and rest the bow on the arm or dowel at the middle of the bow. So there I'm here at the white marking, which is the middle of the bow. Okay. Just a reminder that the forearm should be horizontal in this position. Remember, we're at the middle of the bow, forearm horizontal. Press the ring finger first, and that will move the bow towards your left hand. Pull the bow back with the index finger, and the tip of the bow will move back toward your body. For now, we'll go back and forth between those 2 places. And again, if your pinky lifts off a little bit while doing this, it's okay. Even if the middle finger, like the pencil, if it lifts off a little bit. We're just focused on getting the index and the ring finger, and we're kind of exaggerating this motion. We're never going to move it this much, but we're getting kind of the macro here. Try that again with the dowel just to show you. And so using the dowel for this exercise, and for a lot of these exercises, might be more the ideal choice. But again, if you're doing this and you don't have this yet or whatever, you can still do the exercises with your arm. Okay, so now notice that when we do that, it leaves us with a kind of a crooked bow every time, right? So when I'm doing this, we don't want our bow to be at this angle, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust now the rest of the right arm to make the bow straight. So I pushed the tip of the bow out with the ring finger, and now I'm going to adjust the rest of my right arm to now make the bow straight. And now I'm going to pull it in with the index finger, and again it's crooked here, and so I need to adjust the rest of my right arm to make it straight. Again, I'm going to push it out with the ring finger, adjust to make it straight, pull it in with the index finger, and then adjust to make it straight. And again, just a side note, what the fulcrum is for this seesaw, right, is actually the thumb, right? So when the index finger and the ring finger go back and forth, they're going around the thumb.
You want to show the mechanics of that on the top camera?
Sure, yeah, that's good. And so...
Or you just do it with your hand, just go like this so they can see the movement. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I'm powering that with pulling the ring finger in like this and pulling the index finger in. And because of that thumb, that's what makes the bow do this. So this exercise is a precursor to using the index and ring fingers to steer the bow to different sounding points on the string. And if you remember from before, that's only a very small area in the string, like we had talked about. So these are just bigger motions that are going to show you. Eventually we're going to make them, finer and finer, and we'll only do them like really slightly to get maybe 3 or 4 inches, or not even, I think it's about maybe 2 or a little over 2 inches between the bridge and the fingerboard. So these are just big, like gross motions that will refine until they're fine motions. Okay, so that's it for today's training session. Let's go back to John and see if we have any questions about the material today.
Let's see here. Hold on a second. Sorry. There we go. We lost. Let's see. Hold
Oops.
on. Okay, hold on.
There you are, but then you disappeared.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Hold on.
Technical difficulties today. There he is.
Okay, I think I'm on. Okay, oops, let's see. Okay, so today we have quite a few people, but only a few people are actually saying hello. So let me just oh, by the way, I'm going to put the link in for this week's practice video, and I'll do that right now, so that way everybody has that. And so we do have a few people saying hello. I'm going to just pass it over to Miguel real quick here.
All right. So, Julian, hi. Thanks for joining us today. And Jason, hi. Thanks again for joining us. Angelie, hi. Thanks for coming. Hi, Calvin. And Christine, hi. And Anthony from Palm Springs.
So we have...
Is it hot there? I'm sure it is. Thanks for joining us, and for all of you who are, who had not said hi, but I'm going to say hi anyway to you. And thanks again for coming today and following along. Did you have something else to say, John, or can I wrap up here?
We can pretty much wrap up. We don't have any questions, but I did drop the link in the chat, so you can start working on your practice as soon as possible, and I'll send you back to Miguel.
All right, so again, follow the links below if you'd like to book a private lesson with me or John. And if you find our content helpful, I'd like to remind you to subscribe, hit the bell to be notified every time we release a new video, like and share it with your friends. Join us next time as we continue the series on bowing, and don't forget to follow up daily with the Violin Bow Hold Part 2 10-minute practice video, and press play every day. Goodbye.